Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
I got my bags packed on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport.
Amateur Traveler, episode 266. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about ethnic neighborhoods and movie stars as we return to Los Angeles for part two of a two-part series.
Got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not, maybe not.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we get into this week's interview, I do have two news stories for you. The first one is an odd warning that is coming out of Orlando to beware the dangerous pizza menus. Apparently, the flyers for pizzas that you find in a hotel room are not always legit. And especially in Orlando, they're having a problem with criminals who convince hungry tourists to give out their names, credit card numbers, and hotel room numbers. And they're not even going to get pizza. And then the second story is one of the funniest stories I've heard in some time, although perhaps not for everyone involved. There is a UK border officer who managed to get his wife out of his hair for 3 years by putting her name on the no-fly list while she was visiting the in-laws overseas. He added his wife's name to the no-fly list after she left for Pakistan, and she was not allowed to get on a plane to come home. But it turns out he was hoisted by his own petard because 3 years later, he forgot that he had exiled his wife. He put himself on a list to be considered for promotion, and they found out that he was married to someone who was on the terrorist watch list. And when they looked into it, they found out what he had done. For links to both of those stories, check out the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. As I said, this is a two-part show with guest Eric Schwartzman, author, educator, and podcaster, podcasts about business and social media, and has just written a book about that too, and we'll have more information about that at the end of the show, but now we'll jump into this episode already in progress.
So here's my Hollywood day for you. Now, I'm not talking about Universal Studios. Okay. I would say if you want to go to Universal Studios, go to the one in Florida. It's better. Okay. And quite frankly, if you want to go to Disneyland, if you don't live here, go to Disneyland in Florida. There's nothing else to do there. If you're coming to LA, see the great things that LA has to offer, not the theme park. Theme park's in Anaheim anyways. I'd make that a side trip. Add on a day for that if you want to go. But that's not an LA trip. So here is sort of an LA celebrity day. Fun things to do. This is my West Hollywood tour.
Okay.
The first thing I would do, get in the car and cruise Sunset Strip. A lot of great things to see on Sunset Strip. Just east of North Doheny, on your left-hand side, you're going to see the famous Roxy Theater. I went to a showcase at the Roxy Theater probably around 10 years ago, and I saw a group that was just sort of getting started. No one really knew who they were. They were called the Pussycat Dolls. That's the type of place it is. It's a place where, talent that people don't know is showcased, gets discovered, and goes on to do big things. Just down the street from the Roxy is the famous Whiskey A Go-Go. And this is another club, but a little bit more gritty. I don't know if you remember the punk rock days. Do you listen to punk rock at all?
I remember the punk rock days. I didn't listen to the punk rock at the time, but yeah.
Well, living in LA, punk rock was pretty big. I remember when I was a kid and we used to listen to it. And the Whiskey was the place where all the big punk acts played. My favorite ones were Elvis Costello, who at the time was considered punk, and X. And Elvis and X both played at the Whiskey. I saw X there. So it's great, sort of cool scene to go check out. You can even go in the daytime with your kids, or if you're younger and you want to go check out and see a band at night, all the better. Just down the street from the Whiskey, this is all walking distance too if you wanted to park and walk it. On the right-hand side of the street, or south side, I should say, is Johnny Depp's Viper Room.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Actually, before the Pussycat Dolls showcased at the Roxy, they played every, I think, Tuesday or Thursday at Johnny Depp's Viper Room. And that was always a cool place to go check out. As a matter of fact, remember Joaquin Phoenix's brother, River Phoenix?
Yeah, River Phoenix, who died just outside of
he died right up front there. So there's a little memorial out there to him. And down the street from that is one of the last great independent booksellers in Los Angeles, Book Soup. And it's a great place for a book signing, great place to just check out and browse the stacks. Definitely 4 great sites to see: the Roxy, the Whiskey, the Viper Room, and Book Soup. If you continue east on Sunset from there, you'll come into an area called Sunset Plaza. And this is sort of where the beautiful people in this area congregate. There is a restaurant there that's not too expensive, actually, that you could go have lunch in and see those beautiful people, called Chin Chin, which is an Asian fusion restaurant. And if you wanted to just go buy something less expensive but still eat around there, just down the street is a really good burrito joint called Paquito Mas. I mean, it's not a restaurant. You'll just go up to a counter. There's no table service or anything. But they have no MSG, no lard, so it's fairly healthy. And they have something called the San Felipe burrito, which is shrimp, cabbage, and sour cream. And that's really delicious. Up the block from there, another block and a half, if you go down a street called Alta Loma, just below Sunset, is a sort of unknown little hotel there called the Sunset Marquee. And this is a hotel that attracts the music business. And they actually have a bar there called the Whiskey Bar. Now, if you are 3 guys or 3 or more guys, I don't care how good looking you are, you're not getting into this place. 2 guys, maybe, if you got there late. Women, no problem. 1 man and 1 woman, well-dressed, probably no problem if it's not too close to 11. Otherwise, you're going to need to be on the list. Very cool little place, very cool little hangout, the Whiskey Bar. Back down Sunset Boulevard, a little ways longer, and a couple things worth seeing there. One is sort of, I would say, the most famous night spot on Sunset Boulevard is at the Mondrian Hotel. And it's got a big door out in the front of it. And it's called the Sky Bar. And it was launched by Cindy Crawford's husband. And he sold it since. But this is definitely the hot ticket. And you're definitely not getting in here unless you're connected. Or, I mean, if you're 2 or 3 young, attractive females, you'll get in. If you're 2 guys and it's early and the doorman's feeling generous, he may let you in. But if you're 3 guys, you're not getting in. Because, if there's too many guys and not enough girls there, then obviously they're not a place people want to go anymore. But that's a cool place. If you can get in there, I would definitely check it out. If you like comedy, just across the street is a place called the Comedy Store. It's a club that's been in Hollywood for, since I was a kid. Actually, it's run by a woman named Mitzi Shore. And a lot of well-known comics have gotten their big break there. I think Eddie Murphy played on stage there for the first time. Do you remember a guy named Pauly Shore who did some
sure.
movies?
Yeah.
Okay, he's Mitzi Shore's son.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he played there too. But that's a great place to see comedy. I would say that's probably the best place in LA to see comedy. There are other places too that are also good, but that's the most famous. Mm-hmm. Just down the street from there, a couple of options for you. The first is, let's say, you're sort of doing it on a budget and you still want to go to hang out in this area, but you're hungry. There is a railroad car called Carney's, and they do chili dogs, chili burgers, and chili fries. It's pretty good. You can pop in there and, for under $20, have dinner. Then you can go back out and keep going down east on Sunset, and you'll hit the Standard Hotel. Standard Hotel's got a great bar scene. Definitely something you want to check out if you're young, looking to meet people. And then down the street from there, 2 more blocks, is a very famous hotel called the Chateau Marmont. Now, I grew up when I was a kid on Marmont for many years. I lived on that street. And the night John Belushi commits suicide at that hotel, the street was blocked off and there were signs everywhere we couldn't get home. The famous photographer Helmut Newton got in a car wreck just pulling out of there. And there's a new movie out by Sofia Coppola called Somewhere, sort of a sweet little slice of life movie about a movie star who lives at the hotel. Huh. It's definitely, I would say, of all the Hollywood locations, this is definitely the most inside Hollywood location. So you might go there and you probably just want to stay there. You're not going to wind up hanging out there unless you got a reason to go there. They're probably not even going to let you in. So that's sort of upscale Sunset Strip. And there's another part of Sunset Strip for those of you that are into music that you may want to see. If you head east from Chateau Marmont, about, I want to say maybe a little under half a mile, on the left-hand side is the Flagship Guitar Center. And this is the place where, Slash gets his guitars and, where all the celebrities in music got their stuff. You'll see a lot of people in there practicing. And then do you remember a song called Down at the Sunset Grill?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, that was a Don Henley song. Right next door to the Guitar Center is the Sunset Grill. And it's a little dive where you can get a hamburger. It's like $4 or $5 hamburger. And it's not particularly the greatest hamburger in the world, but it's not bad. And it's kind of nostalgic to go down to the Guitar Center, check out the guitars. Out in front, they have something called the Walk of Rock, where they have like a lot of stars for different musical artists in the sidewalk there. Okay. And then the Sunset Grill next door. So that would be sort of the midway stop. And then I'm going to give you sort of my abbreviated Hollywood Boulevard tour. If there's one big disappointment LA has to offer, it's Hollywood Boulevard.
I think a little less so than it used to be, but I know what you're saying. Yep.
You know what? I'm not buying it, Chris, because I've been hearing for my whole life, we're redoing Hollywood Boulevard. We're redoing Hollywood Boulevard. You know what? Every time they redo it, it just gets a little more seedy. And in my opinion, it's a dump. I mean, it's worth going to, but I mean, I've got to think, if I'm in Sweden and I think about Hollywood and Hollywood Boulevard, I probably think it's glamorous. Right. And it's not, man.
It's not Rodeo Drive.
No, it's a dump. And there's a lot of homelessness, a lot of pickpockets. It's a dangerous area, prostitution around there. I mean, it's not a good neighborhood. It kind of sucks, quite frankly. So my advice is don't spend a lot of time there. And really, if you want to see Hollywood Boulevard, here's all you need to do. Just keep it simple. Head up to Hollywood Boulevard, and you can park now at the Kodak Theater. There is a mall there called the Hollywood and Highlands Mall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they're parking there. I think it's 2 hours free with validation. And then you can go up to Hollywood street level. And if you head from there west, on the north side of Hollywood Boulevard is Grauman's Chinese Theater. And of course, this is the fabled Hollywood Boulevard Theater where all the premieres happened, in the heyday of Hollywood.
And it isn't very big.
No.
It's surprisingly small, yeah.
Yeah. And in the little foyer area outside the theater, around the box office, there's no admission. In the cement, imprints of stars' hands and shoes can be found there. And they're signed there as well. And, it's kind of kitsch. It's kind of fun. I mean, if I'm showing someone around LA, it's definitely something that I would want to show most people. I think it's fun. And then across the street from that is the famous Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. recently had a makeover. I've never stayed there. I've heard mixed things about the room. I know for a while they had a bar scene there and they had a nightclub. I don't know if those were hot anymore. But in that hotel, if you just walk into the lobby, right on the right-hand side there, after you walk in on the lobby, is the West Ballroom. That is where the original Academy Awards were held, right in there. So you can just walk in. Most of the time the room's empty. Just walk in that room, take your picture, You could actually, what I would do, buy a souvenir across the store of a little fake Oscar.
Oh, and there's a lot of them available in Hollywood, sure, yeah.
And then you can, ham it up and take your picture. Kind of fun. Other things you might want to see in the area, there's the Kodak Theater there, which now hosts the Academy Awards every year. And then in that little strip of Hollywood right in front of the Kodak Theater, that's actually the area where they have the red carpet for the Academy Awards. Right. They shut down the block between Orange Drive and Highland, and they roll red carpet down, and they line up the press, and that's where the celebrities come through and enter into the theater. So you get a chance to see that. So, you'll see where the scaffolding goes, that type of thing. If you have kids, across the street is the El Capitan Theater, and it's owned by Disney. Right. And if ever there's like a new animated release that they have, they usually have like a stage show with it where they have, dancing mascots, that type of thing. Sometimes they'll have some sort of interactive display with it. So it's a little bit more than a regular movie ticket, but fun thing to do nonetheless. I mean, great thing for the kids. So that would be my Hollywood day.
Now, we should say, too, the Walk of Fame, you didn't skip it exactly. It's right there if you wanted to see the stars.
I should have pointed that out. The Walk of Fame is there. I think if you see the Walk of Fame between the Grauman's Chinese Theater and the Hollywood Roosevelt, that's enough. I would not follow the Walk of Fame down towards, Schrader or Las Palmas or anything. You're just going to wind up walking through a really dumpy area.
Okay.
So that's what I would say, avoid that. That's one of the things that guidebooks will tell you to see. I wouldn't see it.
You're skipping a couple other things, too. One, we skipped a studio tour.
Yeah, no, I would not do. Oh, you mean at Paramount?
Paramount, for instance. Yeah, not the Universal one, which is more the theme park, but you can, for instance, at Paramount do a studio tour. You're not recommending it, or?
Do they still do it?
I don't know. They did a couple of years ago, at least.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's kind of going to be boring nowadays. One thing you might throw in there, a little throw in, just by Paramount, is the Hollywood Memorial Cemetery.
The Hollywood Forever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they have Marilyn Monroe. No, she's buried in Westwood. I'm wrong about that. But there's a lot of different celebrities buried there, and it's kind of a hip thing to do. But no, I don't think the studio tour or any of that really is worth doing. I mean, if you really wanted to sort of get an inside view of what goes on in the studios, what I would do is try to get tickets to see the taping of a TV show.
Okay.
A lot of sitcoms are shot in front of live studio audiences because they want to sort of vibe off the live laughter to get things cooking. And it's kind of, quite frankly, I mean, it's kind of a pain in the you-know-what because they make you get there way early, have a warm-up comic who's usually not very good. And it takes a long time to shoot a half-hour show. I mean, it's a 3-4 hour ordeal. But if you wanted to sort of see how things work in show business, I would recommend that over a studio tour. Or you go see a Leno taping. That'd be a good thing to do that. He's out in Burbank.
Right. Okay. And then the other thing that people are going to ask about, I think, if we don't talk about it, is the Hollywood sign.
Yeah, the Hollywood sign.
In the movies, you always go right up there and you're sitting on the Hollywood sign.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you're here in the summer, it's tough to see because the smog is so bad. So if you just have to get a killer view of the sign, head on up to the Griffith Park Observatory. That is where Rebel Without a Cause was shot. That's where James Dean has the knife fight on the sides of the steps there. And there's a stunning view of the Hollywood sign from up there and a really good view of the city, actually. So that would be my advice. If you head up to Griffith Park Observatory, and I'll put a pushpin on that on my Hollywood map.
And it's surprising that you sort of get the impression from the movies that you could just see the sign, which actually isn't all that easy to see from everywhere, and then just drive towards it. And it's not really built to do that. I mean, it was built to advertise a subdivision, so it's not really a tourist destination in that same way. Only in the movies, it seems.
Right. And you can see it from Orange. I mean, if it's clear, you can see it from Orange, which is the street where Paramount and the Hollywood Memorial Cemetery is. Or, if the smog is too bad, you drive north up to the observatory.
Okay. And you have a fourth day for us.
I do have one more day for you. So my last day for you would be downtown.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing about downtown. Downtown is not a very safe area. Skid Row is downtown.
In LA's defense, it's not the original Skid Row because that's in Seattle, but
Oh, it's not. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you go down to a certain area down there, I mean, there are people, it's just terrible. I mean, people living in boxes. I mean, it's break your heart. There's a movie about that actually with Bob Downey Jr. And yeah, I mean, I thought really well done. I mean, that's what it's like down there. It is that was not overdone. I mean, that's how it is. It's sad. So here's the thing. Sometimes people come down here for business or they stay there. You don't want to stay downtown. You definitely do not, unless you have to. You do not. It's the last place you want to stay. You want to stay in Santa Monica. You want to stay in Beverly Hills. You might want to stay on Sunset Strip, but you do not want to stay downtown because you're locked into your hotel at night and there's nowhere really to go. But there are some great things to see downtown. So I would say the best day to be downtown is going to be a weekend because the traffic is just grueling during the weekdays. But the optimum day for me to be downtown would be Saturday because on Saturday in Chinatown, Empress Pavilion serves dim sum. So I would head on over to the Empress Pavilion in Chinatown. And if you've never been to dim sum before, the way it is you sit at a table with other people that you don't know. And there are these people pushing around these little carts. And on each little cart is a different type of food. And you just point to what you want and you get it. And then they stack up the different plates that you've eaten and they charge you. And if you've never done it, it's a great experience. It's probably not the best dim sum in LA, but it's very good. And it's a great place to go. It's a nice room. So that would be my first thing I would do, probably head over there for breakfast. And there's a lot of really cool things to see around that area. The first thing you might do is head on over to the Cathedral of Our Lady the Angels, which is the Catholic church, which is brand new, built down there. There are catacombs under the church.
Oh, I didn't know there were catacombs. Okay.
And there is a famous artist, a sculptor, who's deceased by the name of Robert Graham, who crafted these beautiful bronze doors. And I've actually put a push pin on my Google map exactly where the doors are. So I would head over to Our Lady of the Angels, check out the doors, visit the cathedral. If you can get a tour of the catacombs, that's really interesting as well. And then just across the streets from there, walking distance, is the Music Center. And in the center of the Music Center is a beautiful animated fountain. It's like a flat piece of ground, and the jets just sort of come in and out animated. And there's tables around there, and there's coffees. You could have a coffee, sit there around the fountain, be a nice little sort of rest stop. And then when you're done with that, you can continue down Grand Avenue, and you'll see Disney Hall, which is the new concert hall that was designed by architect Frank Gehry.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the entire exterior is surfaced with sheet metal. So it's shiny. Now, apparently, a lot of the people living in condos around there complained when it first went up because of the reflections. But I'll tell you what, it is definitely the most stunning piece of modern architecture Los Angeles has to offer. And you can walk around. There are gardens around there. Underneath is a couple of restaurants. There's an upscale restaurant. And little beknownst to most people, underneath Disney Hall is something called Red Cat. And Red Cat is sort of this alternative art space where they have interesting performances. Huh. So something to know about, like if you're headed down there, you might check out online what Red Cat has to offer before you go, because you might see something really interesting and unusual there. And then just down the street from that is the Museum of Contemporary Art.
Okay.
And there's no standing display at the Museum of Contemporary Art. It's always different depending on what they're showing. But it's a nice museum. I mean, is it the Louvre? No. Is it a world-class museum? To my friends who are on the board down there, I hate to break it to you guys. We do our best, but they have had some great things. Let me see. They had David Hockney exhibit, which was terrific. They had granddaughter of Sigmund Freud, was terrific. So they have interesting things. If you're an art buff, I would definitely check that out. And if you continue to head south there's a couple things that are worth knowing about. The first is, believe it or not, the Los Angeles Library. It's mission architecture. It's beautiful. And they have a room there called the Rare Book Room. And if you go in there and just sort of check out some of these old books they have, I think you'll be really amazed. Now, if you have kids while you're downtown, a great place to shop for children's formal wear. On Los Angeles Boulevard, if you've got a kid, a boy 9 or under, you could pick up a pinstripe suit Really, pinstripe suit for $35. And if you've got a girl, 9, 10 or under, you could pick up a formal party dress for $20 with bows and satin and just beautiful. You wouldn't believe it. Sort of little unknown facts about LA. Down south of there is the Staples Center, which is home to the Lakers and home to the Clippers and home to the Kings. I wouldn't really go there unless I was seeing a show. There's nothing really to see down there. But actually, just east of there are a couple things worth seeing. The first is, if you really like baked goods, the pastry chef for the Queen of Denmark opened a little bakery down there called Hygge Bakery. It's Hygge Bakery. He bakes entirely with margarine, which actually makes it much lighter. It's not a bad neighborhood or anything, but it's not much of a place to sit. I mean, you can. There's nothing wrong with it. But I typically would get it to go there. And I would get the Kringle. Absolutely delicious. And then I would head down east of there on, let's see, this would be Los Angeles Street and Olympic. Between Olympic and Santee is an alley called Santee Alley, Santee Alley.
So first he tells us it's a dangerous neighborhood. Now he's got us going down an alley.
Oh, not at night. This is a daytime. Thank you for pointing that out. This is daytime, okay? Santee Alley. Santee Alley is a shopping alley. And this is a place where you can pick up a pair of diesel jeans for $80 instead of $200. You can get great T-shirts, great clothes for kids, good toys, great dolls. If you're on the market for like a really realistic-looking doll for a kid, great place to get a doll. It's not even that expensive. And just general hazarai. If you don't know that word, it just means sort of souvenirs, that type of thing. Okay. Really good prices. And let's see, from there, I guess if it's about lunchtime now, you might head up to Little Japantown and hit Sushi Gen for lunch. It's kind of pricey, but it's terrific sushi. If you get to downtown LA early, we have a flower market downtown, which opens at 4 a.m. And you can't shop there because it's wholesale. So you had a wholesale license. But just to walk through the market with all those flowers, it really is sensational. It would be a very romantic thing to do, if you're there with a date or something like that. And if you want to have fish and you're on a budget, there's a place called Catch 22, which is on Central at Gladys. And for literally $10, you get a plate of shrimp, or $20, you get shrimp and lobster. There's no indoor seating. It's like a glorified lemonade stand, but it's terrific. And everything's very fresh because it's right next to the Central Fish Market. So, great place to go for inexpensive fish.
I wanted to get back to the flower market for a bit. For fans of the movie Valentine's Day, it featured the LA flower market.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm.
I never saw that movie. Good movie?
It's okay.
All right, okay.
It's a romantic comedy. I think you could probably guess how it ends. But
okay, here's my evening for downtown. This is what I would do. This is like some of my best advice I got, too. All right? So, downtown LA is a street called Olvera Street. Olvera Street. On that street are the oldest restaurants in Los Angeles. And guess what? They're all Mexican. Because guess what? Los Angeles used to be part of Mexico.
Right.
It's a walking street, Olvera Street, and there's all sort of little Mexican curious vendors in the street. And there's a restaurant on that street called La Golondrina, and it means the bride. Okay? You go there, and you have the mole, and you will never forget me. Okay? It is the most delicious thing you will ever taste. I don't know if you've never heard of mole. It's a chocolate butter chili sauce. It's not very spicy. Get the mole not on the chicken. Get the mole chicken enchiladas, and it will blow you away. And then if you really are a fan of Mission-style architecture, across the street from Olvera Street is the Union Station, which is a central train station for LA, and it is stunning architecture. It's very austere, very stark, not much to it, but it really sort of gives you that Arroyo Los Angeles feeling back, what it must have been like back in the day. I think that's be a pretty good LA trip. I do have a side trip on this if you'd like.
Well, before we get to the side trip, we should just one comment on the mole. So for those of you who listened to the Oaxaca show, there may be 7 different types of mole at least. So we're talking here a mole negro, the one that is made with chocolate, and probably the best known of all the different moles.
Okay, good, good. I didn't even know there was more than one mole.
Yes, well, I've had them all on one. I've had a sampler of 7 different moles down when I was in Oaxaca, Mexico, which is really the home of mole.
How was that?
Wonderful.
Oh
I
my
liked
God.
them all, but they're all very different from
Oh my God, I would love to
a
try
bright
that.
yellow
That's
to
a
a
reason to
green
go to
to a.
Oaxaca.
Oh, absolutely. There are many
Wow.
reasons to go there, but the mole is definitely one.
In terms of the side trip, I mean, I would say if you feel like it, you can drive out to Pasadena and visit Huntington Gardens. Huntington Gardens is an estate formerly of the Huntington family. Now it's a public destination, and there's a museum there, and they have 2 famous paintings which you may have heard of. One is called Blue Boy, and one is called Pinky, and they're both by Gainsborough, famous painter. So those are my 3 itineraries, and as I said, I set them up as Google Maps if someone wants to, go do them exactly.
Except I think you had 4, as I recall.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry. Did I say 4? I'm sorry. Downtown LA, Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Westwood, Santa Monica, Venice Beach.
Excellent.
I mean, if you came to LA and you did those 4, I mean, you would that's really LA. You'd be seeing LA.
A couple questions. Best day of the year to go to LA?
Okay, so it really depends on who you are, right? It depends if
Sure.
you're a family or if you're a young person sort of looking to party. I would say if you're a young person looking to party, summer is when you want to come out.
Okay.
If you're a family, I don't know. I mean, if you're not going to Disneyland or anything like that, come on out during Christmas time. Because I'll tell you what, the traffic is not bad at all. Most people leave. So I know at Disneyland, they turned people away at Christmas this year. People actually went, they were turned away. It was so busy. Probably the same thing at Universal Studios. But if you're coming to LA to hang out in LA with a family, I would think Christmas would be a great time to do it.
And then one thing I just should say, because I know that when we do something like LA, there are a lot of things to do in LA, and there's no way we covered everything that everyone would think of. And that's okay. This is Eric's particular 4 destinations for LA. We skipped a number of places that I might have named also. And the La Brea Tar Pits, the Watts Tower, for instance. I happen to like the farmers market. There's the food truck scene, the Norton Simon. There's lots of things to do in LA.
I just have to argue with you here for just
Okay, interesting. Okay.
All right. Tar pits, forget about it. I mean, it's just a total waste of time. Don't waste your time on the tar pits, I would say. It's nothing going on there. I mean, some bones, man. And they're not the greatest bones either. So I would say no on that. Farmers Market used to be great, but not anymore. It's become a mall now. I mean, there's a little bit of the old Farmers Market left. I worked there. I worked at a fruit stand when I was a kid. That's how I made money during the summer. And it was great back then. But, now it's become a big shopping mall with new stores and an American Girl store.
Right.
So doesn't have that charm, that authentic.
No, I like the
charm.
older part that you're talking about rather than the. Well, actually, it's a nice mall as far as malls go, but yeah.
That does bring up one thing. I mean, in terms of farmers markets, true farmers markets, if you ever heard a show called Good Food on NPR, according to the people on that show, and I mean, I haven't been to all of them, but it's the best one I've ever been to. On Wednesdays in Santa Monica, on Arizona and 2nd Street, they close it off and they have a farmers market. And it will blow your mind, the quality of this farmers market. I mean, the stuff you'll see there, you won't see anywhere else. All local farmers, it's great. And you'll even see the local chefs from the hot restaurants there shopping.
Okay.
In terms of the other places you mentioned, I mean, those are sort of the places, like if you search, I did a search before we did this podcast, things to do in LA. And that's what it has. It has Disneyland,
right,
Universal Studios, Knott's Berry Farm, Tar Pits, and the truth is, I mean, if I was showing someone around LA and I wanted them to really see LA and have a good impression of it, that's not what I would take them to. I would take them to the things I talked about first.
Excellent. And again, there are going to be a variety of opinions. So go ahead and comment on the show with what you think that Eric left off, but know that there's no way we're going to have the same opinions because it's a big place. There's lots to do.
And no matter what you have to say, I've been here longer than you did. So think you're going to comment, tell me something I don't know. Believe me, I know it. I've been there. Okay?
The one question I have is we're driving everywhere, and we already talked about the traffic's bad. Somebody's going to ask it, so I'll ask it for them. I thought they put in a new subway in LA.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Forget about it. I mean, it goes nowhere. It goes 2 places. I mean, it's not like, look, the metro in Paris, man, you can go anywhere on that thing.
Right.
You can get within a few blocks, not with our subway. I mean, look, let's say, for example, you're coming out for business. and you're staying at the Universal Sheraton or the Universal Hilton, okay, then you can hop on that and go downtown.
Right.
But once you're downtown, how are you going to get around?
Yep. This has been a longer show. In fact, this is going to be a 2-part show by the time it comes out. So I don't want to belabor this too much, but what is going to surprise me about LA? I've heard about it. I've seen it in the movies a million times. When I actually get there and get feet on the street or tires on the road, what is going to surprise me?
I think Hollywood is sort of a big surprise because people sort of think of Hollywood as a destination where movies are made, and it's not the case anymore.
Right.
Movies are now made all over the world. They're made largely with computers, and there's no back lot, except the fake one that was built for the studio tour at Universal Studios. I mean, it just doesn't exist anymore. And also, the idea that Hollywood, you go to Hollywood and it's so drab and funky and disheveled. I think that's sort of a shock.
So surprise, but not a good surprise in this case.
No, not a good surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the good surprises, I think, if you really went to any of these places that I mentioned and maybe order what I'm suggesting or, check them out, I think you would sort of see the charm and the loveliness of Los Angeles, but it's not going to be overwhelming. It's not the type of thing where, like, you walk down the Champs-Élysées and you take a breath of fresh air and it's like, wow, look how beautiful this city is. It's not like that. LA is spread out. It's basically a big suburb.
Yep.
It's not particularly attractive. The architecture is not beautiful, but there are little pockets, little charming pockets. And I think if you know some of the history and you plan accordingly and you get to the right places at the right times, you'll have a good time. But it does require a lot of planning.
Okay. Final 3 questions. What's one thing you've seen in LA and you just have to laugh and say only in LA?
It's very competitive in Los Angeles because there are so many people. So, I mean, if you go to the farmer's market in Santa Monica, I remember one time I went to the farmer's market in Santa Monica and there was a farmer there with some special berries. I didn't even know what kind of berries they were. They were so interesting looking. And I went up and I said, what are those? And they told me, and I don't remember what they said they were. And I said, I'd like them. He said, oh, no, those are reserved for somebody else. That's so LA. It's like you can't even buy the berries in the store.
Wow. Okay.
Because someone else, you got to know somebody to get the berries. I mean, that's the way it is now. It's who you know. It's how connected you are, really.
Okay. And then finish this sentence for me. You really know you're in LA when what?
When you can't see the mountains. They're 3 miles from you because of the smog.
And it's better than it used to be, we should say.
When you go to the Sky Bar and you look around at how beautiful the people are. I mean, the one thing about Los Angeles, people are beautiful everywhere, clearly. But LA is all about packaging and presentation.
Yep.
People really know how to put their best foot forward. They know how to dress. They know how to doll themselves up. They know what to wear. And there's an incredible amount of time and energy that people in LA put into their physical appearance. You really know you're in LA when you go to Sunset Strip and you see, the beautiful people walking around like they just maybe pulled an outfit out of the drawer, but, it was perfectly planned and they look great.
And if you had to summarize LA and all, however many million people there are in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
3 words for LA.
It's a long enough episode. I could give you 4.
Here they are. Okay. It's who you know. That would be my 4 words for LA.
Excellent. Eric, thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Let me just say, actually, before we get into that, let me just say, I am frequently cornered by a friend who's coming to LA or a friend of a friend who's coming to LA or somebody coming to LA. So now that I've done
you're
this
sending them
with
this
you, Chris,
podcast.
I can just point into this. You've made my life more productive. Thanks.
Excellent. And we should say, I mentioned at the beginning of the show that Eric is a podcaster and then also has a new book out. You want to give us just a little bit of background on the book?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, social media has been a very hot topic. A lot of people curious about how to use it for business, but not a lot of thought given to how to use it for business-to-business communications. The truth is, most businesses in the world do not sell things to consumers. They sell things to other businesses. And often when you think about how you're going to use Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or blogs or podcasts or search engine optimization to connect with a focused audience of business buyers, that becomes a little bit more challenging. So this is the first book devoted exclusively to business social media marketing. And we start from square one and walk you through every step of creating, executing, and measuring an effective business-to-business marketing campaign.
Excellent. And I'd have to say that when Eric and I had a chance to meet for the first time face-to-face at the Boston PodCamp, we really had a chance to go into great detail about social media and a shared love for both of us. So it was a joy to have you on the show, Eric. And
Thank you. Thank you.
If anybody wants to learn more about what you're doing, where can they find you on the web?
EricSchwartzman.com.
Excellent. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
In news of the community, I want to reach back into the mailbag to something that I didn't answer way back when I got it almost a year ago. And this is a letter from Marty, who's coming from Williamsburg, Virginia, who says, not really in the tourism industry anymore, but I did own and operate the 4-guest-room Applewood Bed and Breakfast here in Williamsburg for 20 years prior to selling it in 2008. I very much enjoyed your podcast about our area. We love living here. I have forwarded your writing assignment about my hometown to my daughter, husband, and friends who did grow up here. I hope they will submit an article. And what Marty is talking about is I put out a call for stories back in June. I didn't get that many. Love to get more. An assignment was to write a blog post for the Amateur Traveler describing your hometown. So I'd still be interested in getting more of those. And then Marty goes on to say, my very favorite podcast was episode 149, Travel with Sheila to Siberia. I've listened to it several times and would love to meet that group, although I can't imagine being that adventurous. And if you don't remember this story, that's the story of a trip to Siberia that was not the perfect trip. This is a trip where things went wrong. I try to watch or listen to a few podcasts every evening as I have given up on TV. Thanks for turning me on to other podcasts. Yours is still the best. Well, thanks so much for saying so, Marty. And then also something that I received back in the fall from Bill. Bill says, first, let me say how much I enjoy your podcast and how envious I am as an aspiring amateur traveler myself. I found your podcast about 9 months ago and have listened to nearly every show. It's great company on a 30-minute commute to and from work. Some of my favorites include shows on photography, World Heritage sites, and of course, the European city shows. It's so refreshing to get a point of view other than Samantha Brown, Rick Steves, or the likes of Fromers. I'm glad you like the show, Bill. Although I listened to all three of those, Samantha Brown, Rick Steves, and Arthur and Pauline Fromer, and enjoy their point of view as well. With that, it is getting late here, so I'm going to bring this episode of The Amateur Traveler to a close. If you have any questions, feel free to drop an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
Got to see one more.